Good evening and welcome to our Bible study tonight. Glad that you're able to be here and join us. Trust that you all had a good day today. And just before we get started in our Bible study that we've been going through on the armor of God, we'll be in Ephesians Chapter 6 once again. I just have a quick announcement I want to do at the beginning, and then I'll add a couple more at the end, but just concerning sign up for the church. So glad that we're able to be reopened again. We have room for 60 people to sign up every Sunday. So we had a good crowd on Sunday, this past Sunday. But just if you're signing up this week, you can do it the regular way. Just at the church website, there on the homepage, you're able to sign up. Just fill out the form. And once you fill out that form, if it goes through, you're good to go. You don't need to wait for a confirmation. You won't be notified. The only time you'll be notified is if you sign up and there isn't enough room. But the way it will work is if there is too much, if too many people have signed up, it won't allow you to submit the form, or it will give you a message letting you know that it's already filled up. But just so you know, if you sign up, you don't need to wait for a confirmation. We'll only contact you in the case that there is not enough room. So we hope that you'll go ahead and sign up for our Sunday service. We look forward to having another great day together in the Lord's house, but as well joining with us all who are online still as well. So it'll be a great time. And I know it's exciting for us to get back to being in the Lord's house. So tonight we're back in Ephesians chapter 6, and we've been studying the armor of God, and we've already looked at truth, we've looked at righteousness, and this evening we're going to be looking at the gospel of peace. So Ephesians chapter 6, and let's just start at verse number 11, and we'll read to verse number 15. The Bible says, "Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girded about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace." So we had already looked at truth, or the belt of truth, and we know we find truth in the Word of God, in the Scriptures. That's where we find truth, and we know that the belt it was the first piece of armor that would go on. It would hold everything else up, and just in general, in the armor of God, it's something that we need to do every day as believers. And preparation is to get dressed, to spiritually prepare ourselves for the day, for the battle that's ahead, and just remember our true responsibilities as Christians. And so with truth, we need to know truth, but we need to be sharing truth as well. And then last week, or a few weeks ago, before we had Canada Day, we looked at righteousness and the breastplate of righteousness. And we basically looked at how we've been made righteous through Jesus Christ, upon him dying on the cross and being saved. You know, we have no accusation from Satan. He's not able to attack us with guilt or shame, because we've been covered with the righteousness of Jesus Christ. But because we have been made righteous, we need to live righteous as well. It's part of God's plan that we live righteously, and we just don't try to ignore the fact that we've been covered in the blood of Christ and covered in his righteousness, and we don't take advantage of that grace, but that we live a righteous life. And as I had mentioned, a lot of these build upon each other. Truth is the basis, and that kind of builds through them all. And then we looked at righteousness, and that plays a lot in this lesson as we look at the gospel of peace, or oftentimes people call it the gospel shoes, but whatever we call it, we're going to be looking at this gospel of peace. So these shoes that the Roman soldiers would wear as part of their outfit, or their armor, I should say, they basically were like sandals. They would, most of them would cover the tops of the feet. It wouldn't kind of be like our flip-flops, but sandals, and they would be fitted with nails or with spikes, metal bits that they would put at the bottom to give him better footing for the battle. It would give the soldier better footing for the battle. Help them to hold firm in the ground, that it'd be easier to stand, to not be moved around. I don't know if you've ever put on a pair of shoes that you've had really worn out soles and you have no grip. You're trying to run or you're trying to stand even, and you can stand there and slip. But it gives you that grip that you need. So as we examine this verse and kind of go through a few things, I want you to notice in this verse it says, "And your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace." So that word preparation is readiness. And I want to look at a few things that we need to be ready to do when we're putting on these gospel shoes. First of all, I want you to notice we need to be ready to stand. When it comes to putting on these gospel shoes and the preparation, the readiness of it, we need to be ready to stand. So on our first lesson, we had mentioned how in this passage, it uses the word stand, or it uses the word withstand. But that variation, they use it 4 times in this passage, just about standing firm, this standing on truth. And in this passage, the idea of standing on the gospel. And we need to be ready to stand as soldiers. So these shoes that the soldiers would wear would protect the feet of soldiers. It would protect their feet. So, for example, if you were to go out in bare feet, it could possibly lose your balance. You can slip up very easily on that. Something, it doesn't have to be something large, but it could be something as easy as pebbles or twigs. They can also really hurt your feet very easily and cause you to trip up very easily. So as a believer, as a Christian, when we put on these the gospel of peace, it's going to help us stand firm. It's going to stop us from slipping into stuff that we ought not to be in, to stop us from being tripped up, to have purpose to stand upon. When you have no direction, no purpose, it's easy to slip into things, slip off and trip up into things that we ought not to be getting into. So we need, as believers, we need to stand firm on the gospel. We need to contend for it. We need to not be moved from the gospel truth, and that it just continues with us, that it's a part of our life, not just at salvation. And, the gospel is the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, the salvation that he has freely given to us. And the gospel shouldn't just be for us when we are saved, but it should be a reminder every day in our life what Jesus Christ did for us. And it should also be a motivation for what we ought to do, as we will look at later on in this lesson. But we need to stand firm on the gospel. We need not sway in the doctrine that we have in it. We are to stand firm on the gospel and stay focused on our responsibilities as believers. I mentioned about having purpose. So many people have no direction or no purpose in this life. But as believers, our ultimate purpose would be to be sharing the gospel message with others. And we need to stand firm upon the gospel. We need to be ready to fight for it. This should affect how we live our life as well. When we are standing firm on the gospel, when we are preparing to share the gospel with other people, and this is kind of where I mentioned that the righteousness comes into play. If we are wearing the gospel, in a sense, we're going to share it. We need to be living a righteous life so that it matches what we're sharing. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, our walk talks and our talk talks, but our walk talks louder than our talk talks. So the idea is that, you can say everything you want, but if your life is living something different, people are going to read your life more than what you're saying. And as believers, we need to be putting on that breastplate of righteousness. We need to be living righteously. And if we're sharing the gospel message with people, we're continually sharing the gospel with our family and friends, co-workers. If they see you living a life that's wicked, a life that doesn't line up with what you're saying or telling them they need to do, they're not going to listen to you. And um, we need to be living a righteous life. And when we're preparing our life, when we're putting on the gospel shoes, we're just arming ourselves with that gospel message, realizing this is our goal, this is our focus to share this message. It's going to cause you to live a certain way. It's going to get you focused. It's going to get you on the right mindset throughout the day and say, you know what? I need to be looking for people. I need to be living righteously. I need to make sure I have a right testimony. And it just should affect our life throughout the day. And we need to be standing upon the gospel of peace. It's just something that we need to be ready for every day. And if we're wearing the gospel shoes, it's not only going to help us to focus, but it's going to keep us from going where we shouldn't be going, places that maybe we shouldn't go. It's something that's just going to keep us going where we ought to be going, just on focus, on track, living for the Lord. So we need to be ready to stand for the gospel. But number two, I want you to notice we need to be ready to follow. We need to be ready to follow. So talking about this preparation of the gospel of peace, readiness, preparing. I look at the life of Jesus. Jesus didn't start his ministry until he was 30, and he was living his life. He was preparing. We look at Jesus and his disciples. Jesus spent 3 years training his disciples. And, this wasn't just a classroom setting training. They weren't sitting in school learning and writing down notes. No, this was an active preparation. He in Matthew 4:19, Jesus is speaking to some of the disciples that he's calling, and the verse says, "And he saith unto them, Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." So Jesus, he's calling them to follow him, and he says, "I will make you fishers of men." This was a process, and Jesus trained them for 3 years on loving and winning souls for him. And when you're training to be something, you're learning something. Someone doesn't become a great craftsman overnight. They don't master a skill overnight. It's something that you need to work on. It's something that we need to learn. And as believers, we need to be preparing in the sense of following Christ and learning of him, learning his word, and ready, learning to win souls. Work has to be put in. We talk about exploring the word, knowing what the word of God says, knowing what the verses say, how we can share the gospel with people. We need to be able to give people answers when they ask for them. We should be reading books on soul winning. We should be preparing to win souls so that we're ready. And I'm not saying that, you sit at home and you prepare and you don't share the gospel until you think you're ready. No, the disciples, as they were following Christ, as they were in all readiness following him, they were winning souls along the way as they were learning from Christ. And we need to, along the way, it's just something that, as a believer, we naturally should want to be sharing the gospel message with other people. And we'll look at that in the next point, just our motivation, but it should be a natural thing, but it's still something that we work on. It's not something that you just automatically are able to, maybe some people have that personality, but some people need to work on going out and learning to talk to people, having boldness, having courage to go out and speak to people, to try to shift conversation to spiritual things so that you can share the gospel message with people. But there needs to be a preparation in the sense that we should be, as Christians, investing in soul winning and learning that skill. Talking to people about soul winning. There's lots of people in the church you can go talk to that are great soul winners that go out very consistently throughout the week, and they just have that comfort. And I know a lot of people who go out on a regular basis who that wasn't the case. They years ago they would have said, I never thought I could do this. But there's lots of people in the church you can talk to. There's someone in the church I was talking to that are working on some videos for soul winning. I haven't got around to finish watching them completely, but they're working on that, and that's a great tool. And that's preparation. They're putting work in, wanting to learn, wanting to help others win souls. But we need to be, as believers, as we're preparing for the day, we need to be ready to follow. We need to be ready to learn from Jesus. We need to be ready to win souls. Just be prepared for it. It shouldn't just be something that happens on accident, but something that we're working towards and just looking for opportunities. That's why, in church we have a lot of young people, and in our junior church classes when those are going, or when we have the help program, we go to different places to help churches out for VBS. We try to give young people opportunities to win children to the Lord, to practice, to watch someone lead someone to the Lord, show them how to show them from the Word of God how to be saved. And it's just something that we need to work on as believers. So we need to be ready to follow. And then lastly, we need to be ready to go. We need to be ready to go. As believers, we need to be ready to mobilize. It talks about the readiness of the gospel of peace, ready to go. So we need to be, we looked at preparing to go, preparing to share the gospel, but we need to be prepared to go as well. Where's the Lord going to call you? Maybe he's going to call you to a new job because there's people there he wants you to share the gospel with. Maybe he's going to call you to a new house because he has some neighbors he wants you to win to the Lord. Maybe he's going to call you to work on that complex near your house where you see lots of kids and you want to go and share the gospel message with them and bring your kids along, and you go knock on their doors and talk to their parents, or whatever it is. Maybe God's calling you. He's putting a burden on your heart to go somewhere. We need to be prepared to go wherever he calls us. Maybe he wants you to move somewhere else. Maybe he's calling you to, I don't like the term full-time ministry, because as believers we need to be all full-time just serving the Lord, but maybe full-time vocational ministry work where he's calling you to be a missionary, or calling you to be a pastor, or calling you to go somewhere to serve him. He's just placed that burden upon you. But we need to be ready to go, prepared to go wherever he calls us. We need to be motivated to go. And if you're to read or study out 2 Corinthians 5, and it talks about being an ambassador for Christ, an ambassador standing in place of someone else, sharing their message. And one of the things when we're putting on the gospel shoes and we're just going out on a daily basis, ready to learn, ready to stand firm upon it, ready to reach other people, we need to remember that we're ambassadors. We aren't preaching our own message. We aren't going out in our own motivation. This isn't because I want to go out and that's my burden. While that might be the case, but our ultimate motivation ought to be the love of Christ that constrains us, the love of God that doesn't wear or wing thin. It's something that's consistent in our life. And we need to rely upon the love of Christ as we go out to be our motivation. And we know we're supposed to be ambassadors. We're supposed to go out, and if you study out 2 Corinthians 5, and it talks about how we've been reconciled with God. Our relationship has been mended, restored with God. We've been reconciled to him. And it talks about we've been given the ministry of reconciliation. We are to go out. We're supposed to reconcile others to Jesus Christ. So we are able to stand as ambassadors for Christ. And this goes hand in hand once again with the breastplate of righteousness. 2 Corinthians 5, verse 21, it says, For he hath made him to be sin for us who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of God in him. So we stand covered in the righteousness of Jesus Christ, and we have the ability to share what Jesus Christ has done for us, and to go out and share that gospel message. And as believers, we must be prepared each day to share the gospel of peace with a lost world. And, we're truly bringing people a message of peace. We aren't going out in anger and attacking people. We aren't going out arguing with people. We're on the offense with peace. In this battle, in this world, we're not going out fighting with carnal weapons. We're going out with peace. We're on the offensive with peace. We're ready to meet the attack of other people and to conquer it with the gospel message of peace. This week I tend to try not to watch too much, get caught up in too much of media, especially what's going on. It's so easy to get wrapped up in that. But there was one video I was watching because it had to do with the church and some of these protesters down in New York, I believe, and they are protesting out front of a church, and they were yelling at members as they're going in. And the members would need to be escorted in, and these people were just screaming at them, screaming at children. It was a very upsetting video to watch. A lot of emotions were coming out watching this video, and these people were in the church watching, and it got to a point where these protesters barged into the church. They disrupted the service. They had the megaphones. They're screaming at people. They're using very foul language. They're swearing at people, and as these people are finally, they say what they have to say, and they're being escorted out. They're walking out. You notice a young man standing by the front door, and as these people are screaming in their faces, swearing at them, he's handing out tracts to these people. If I could say anything from what I saw these people saying, he was constrained by the love of Christ. He was motivated by the love of Christ for these people who just hated him. That's not natural for us to respond to hate with love, but that was natural for Jesus Christ, and we've been covered in his righteousness. And he stood there and he handed out tracts, and not one person took what he said. They were swearing in his face. They were screaming in his face for trying to hand him something. A few people tried to knock it out of his hands, and he was meeting their attack with the gospel of peace. We aren't screaming back at them. We aren't fighting back with them, but we're meeting them with peace. And this world needs peace. People are seeking peace. Some people say they're seeking peace, but their actions are the opposite of that. But as believers, we need to be reaching out to this world, a lost world, a world without hope, a world that's looking for peace. We have the gospel of peace, and we need to prepare ourselves on a daily basis with that. We need to be standing upon it, not moved away from the gospel message. We need to be following after it, learning, preparing, and we need to be ready to go. We need on a daily basis ready to share the gospel with people on our path. We need to be ready to follow Jesus wherever he sends us to go, maybe away from our homes, or maybe it's in our neighborhood. He wants you to go to your neighbors. But we need to be ready to go. So the gospel of peace, these shoes of the gospel of peace, they keep us standing. They keep us from slipping like the Roman soldiers. They keep us following on. They keep us marching forward for Jesus. If you're to talk to someone who's in the military and their basic training, they're taught how to take care of their boots. It was something important. It was something that helped them in the fight. It was something that helped them in the battle. And the same is true for us as believers. We need to take care of these gospel shoes. We need to be prepared. We need to be willing to go. They're going to keep us standing. They're going to keep us from slipping away. They're going to keep us living a righteous life if we're living with the gospel as our focus at the forefront of our day. It's going to keep us living a right life so that people see a right testimony. And it's just going to keep us marching forward for Jesus. So I hope today that you are preparing yourself on a daily basis, wearing this gospel, these gospel shoes, and you have that breastplate of righteousness on and the belt of truth as well, as we try to live a victorious life for Jesus, and that everything that we do would be glorifying to him. So I hope this has been a help to you, and I hope that you'll continue to join us for these lessons as we finish up in the next few weeks. So just a few announcements before we go. Just once again, just sign up for church this Sunday if you're able to come or you feel comfortable coming. Just go ahead, sign up for that legacybaptist.church slash sign up, or you can go to the homepage and you'll see the sign up link there. And then just a reminder, Pastor has his podcast. And if you haven't given a listen, go ahead, look for Legacy Baptist Church on iTunes. Or if you want to listen to it directly from the church website, just go to legacybaptist.church, and there's a link for the podcast, and you can listen to it right there in your web browser. So a great opportunity to explore the Word. Devotional is coming up, but just continue to explore the Word, and we're excited to meet once again this Sunday, so we hope to see you there. So take care, and we will see you next time. God bless. Bye.